Hi everyone, welcome to my video. My name is Laura Sepulveda and in this occasion I am going to talk about Christine, written by Stephen King. So I'm going to talk about some chapters from chapter 5 to chapter 16. So let's start. Christine had stopped in the chapter number 5 because she had a flat tire. For 3 hours, Arnie left Christine in front of Ralph's house. After having solved his problem, Arnie drove up to a big garage door with a sign beside it read "Hawk for entry." "Would you mind hacking your horn for me, Dennis?" said Arnie, because Christine's doesn't seem to work. Dennis beefed his horn twice, and after a pause, the big garage door went rapidly off. Arnie turned his car around and went inside, and after that, Darnell and Arnie had a discussion. In the next chapter, Arnie felt sad because he had been affected by Darnell. In the next chapter, Dennis talks about his family. His sister was 14 and she was called Elaine. His mother had 43 and she was an adulting hygienist. His father was a tax consultant, but he had a heart attack and go out. After that, his mother decided she was a sound reader. On the other hand, Dennis had some nightmares in the chapter. In the following chapter, Arnie spent all his time in the garbage and he almost didn't have time for his friend and family. He wanted to fix the old car. Dennis, the old car, he made his first repair change the oil and looked the block over. That day, Dennis and Arnie went to watch movies. He had something to him. Dennis couldn't be more surprised. In the next chapter, Arnie told his friend that besides the scratch on his face and had more bumps on his back and abdomen, that you've ever been in a fight with Buddy in Darnell's dump for the car. In the next chapter, Dennis read the paper intuitively and found that said a soldier had died. Suddenly, Dennis called Arnie and told him everything. He took it as a joke. In the next chapter, Arnie had Dennis traveled together. They arrived at the burial site. When the preacher finished his service, they saw a man who looked like Mr. Levy. Maybe he was his brother. They thought, the time to leave had arrived, but Arnie didn't want to go. He wanted to talk to Levy's brother when he had done it. He told him that his deceased brother had sold him a car. At that moment, Mr. Levy mentioned Christine's name. The last thing George Levy told Arnie was that he wanted to sell his brother's property and leave the city, and he gave Arnie a piece of advice. He told him to sell the car either complete or in parts. In the next chapter, Dennis arrived at the motel that Mr. Levy had indicated. There, he realized that all people are old. Levy began to talk about his brother's life, his bad mood had with a woman named Veronica, with whom he had a daughter called Rita. George Levy tells Dennis that for his brothers, the most important thing was to buy the car. So, the year his brother got the car, his daughter Rita downed with a piece of meat. 6 months after the death of his daughter, his wife dies. In the next chapter, Dennis arrived at the house and his father asked him where he had been, and his father told him that Arnie had left a message for him. Dennis called his friend, and Arnie was very happy because Ricardo Hall had left the garage, and now Arnie could have Christine in the darnest garage. When Dennis heard the words of his friend, he intended to tell him about the accidents that had happened in the car, but he preferred not to say anything, but advised his friend and told him that if he felt that thing got heavy, he would go away. In the next chapter, meanwhile, Arnie was on a family walk. Dennis was with Christine, and he was astonished because Christine had improved his appearance to match. A big hand fell on his shoulder and turned him around. He was Darnell. Both went to Darnell's office, and Darnell told him the whole story. After that talk, Dennis went to his house terrified. In the next chapter, Arnie didn't find out that Dennis has been to the garbage, and Darnell kept his mouth shut as he had promised. So, undoubtedly, Arnie was at Darnell's a lot more than his house and Dennis's house. Dennis's coach called Puffer, and his second match, Dennis's was hit, knocked down, and ran over. Suddenly, Christine was there once again. She was sparkling and brand new, as if she was rolled out of the showroom. Arnie was sitting on the roof and said, "Don't worry, Dennis, everything will be fine." But Dennis couldn't understand what he was saying. In the next chapter, Arnie met a beautiful girl. Her hair was darkish blonde, her eyes were blue, her skin was fair and perfect, her figure was lovely and sexy, with nice hips, good legs, and a small waist. Arnie looked at her. On the other hand, a few guys had tried to take her, but she has pleasantly turned down. She had no idea of how really Arnie had looked for his first 3 years. So, Buddy Riperton wanted to fight with Arnie. He had a switchblade knife in his right hand, and he was tall and broad-shouldered. His hair was long and black. He didn't look just stupid and mean. He looked crazy. Dennis tried to defend it, but finally, Mr. Casey had arrived. Buddy Riperton snatched his switchblade off the pavement. His hand was scraped and bleeding, and it looked if it were going to swell. After that fight, Riperton, Baden Blair, and Welch had to go to Mr. Casey's office, and finally Dennis and Arnie could stay calm. So this all for today. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.